forgot to record it. See, that's why I said wait, chat. I always forget. Either way, YouTube, this is a man who lives inside a dead body for 83 days. Chat, it's probably like why you're repeating it. I gotta repeat it for YouTube. It's going as a YouTube video too. I'm sorry. Let's get right into it.
The old you for a completely new person. Although we're capable of healing ourselves to a certain extent, this is not completely true. What would happen if we lost the ability to regenerate cells? And how much time would we have before our body is no longer considered alive? This is the story of Hisashi Ouchi, the most irradiated man in history, his family who couldn't let him go, and his 3-month-long battle for survival in a body falling apart at the seams.
I'm liking this intro, I'm not gonna lie. Disclaimer, today's episode concerns the science of a nuclear power. How fast do you guys want me to read? Goddamn.
One of the ways for us as a species to wean off fossil fuels. And nowadays, reducing our carbon footprint is more important than ever. Hey, you look different. Thanks to Klima, the sponsor of our video. The actions of climate-conscious individuals.
Bro, all these sponsors, bro, come on.
Claim your trees and support our channel. We can make
look how long they take.
Then, workers would pump the no exothermic as the Japan
Nuclear
Fuel Conversion Company, established in 1979. For 10 years, the nuclear plant supplied sundry research and experimental reactors for the Japanese scientific community, but wasn't part of the actual energy grid. The plant produced up to 3 tons of enriched uranium per year up until the accident in September 1999. Workers would dissolve uranium oxide powder using nitric acid in a dissolution tank, then pump the resulting substance, now called uranyl nitrate, into a storage column built with specific reaction-preventing geometry for mixing. Then, workers would pump the no exothermically reacting uranyl nitrate into a precipitation tank surrounded by water to cool it off, keeping it from hitting critical mass. However, a measly 3 years prior, in 1996, the company's standards had been changed without the express clearance of the Japanese Energy Authority, a change that would have a significant impact on the workers tasked to mix the nuclear material. Instead of dissolving the uranium oxide in the dissolution tank, workers were to just do it in stainless steel buckets to speed up the process. In addition to that, it was modified further, trading safety for speed, by pouring the uranyl nitrate directly into the precipitation tank. Instead of mixing the substance in the storage column, it would happen in the precipitation tank instead, bypassing the systems intended to prevent criticality. Put simply, workers were asked to ignore the first and second tanks, the ones made specifically to prevent accidents, dissolve the uranium by hand, and then pour it into the final tank like it was a uranium.
I'm not a scientist, but that does not sound good or right. That does not sound right. I'm not a scientist, I already know this sounds dumb. I would not trust it.
Sounds safe, doesn't it? On the morning of the 30th of September, 1999, nuclear workers Hisashi Ouchi and Masato Shinohara were mixing up a batch of fuel, while their supervisor, Yutaka Yokokawa, sat at his desk about 4 meters away. Ouchi and Shinohara were supposed to mix up 2.4 kilos of enriched uranium. But instead, they were manually mixing up 16 kilos of the nuclear substance in the aforementioned steel buckets. This was, as we mentioned before, wildly dangerous. Then, at 10:35 a.m., a blue flash erupted from the middle of the room, and all 3 men were overcome in a wave of nausea. The flash was what's called Cherenkov radiation, which is light that is emitted when electrically charged particles pass through a medium faster than light can. In this case, the water in...
That's fucking crazy. So can you like see the light like when it actually happens? That's fucking crazy. I would be creeped out if I saw that.
But not the now reactive uranium particles. Then, suddenly, flash, followed by a wave of gamma radiation.
When I first started EVE, I was a minor, and I was...
Their co-workers quickly jumped into action, donning hazardous material suits, before bolting into the room to rescue the 3 men and rush them to a local hospital. There, they determined the levels of radiation that each of the men were exposed to, Sieverts are used to measure the impact of low levels of radiation on the human body. For reference, the typical dosage of radiation at Chernobyl workers who died within a month of exposure was 6 sieverts, while the highest non-lethal exposure is about 1 sievert. Yokokawa, Owuchi's supervisor, received the least, at 3 sieverts. Shinohara received 10 sieverts, and Owuchi received the most, a whopping 17 sieverts.
What the fuck?
Soon after arriving at a local hospital, medical staff decided that they were ill-equipped to help Owuchi, transferring him to the Tokyo University Hospital, where more experimental methods could be attempted. Dr. Maikawa, the lead doctor in Owuchi's case, heard about the accident on the news in the afternoon of the first day, and was selected for the role because of his expertise in emergency radiation medicine. He said in an interview that he noticed the staff of the NIRS, National Institute of Radiological Sciences, wore protective suits and masks. Therefore, I suspected the degree of the contamination might have been quite high. Dr. Maikawa noted that the amount of radiation that Owuchi was exposed to was definitely fatal. But when Owuchi met the team, he actually looked fine. He was able to speak and respond to the medical staff. One nurse tending to Owuchi said that his skin was reddish, as if he had got a terrible sunburn. His arm was badly swollen, and he said he had a pain in that area. And another said that she thought that he would be well enough to leave the hospital. Despite this, the radiation began penetrating the chromosomes of his cells. Chromosomes contain the blueprints of our genetic information. They provide the code that tells our cells when and how to reproduce.
Yes,
However,
dude, I
now
learned that in
Owuchi-
fucking 7th grade. You don't have to teach me again, but thank you for the recap. Thank you.
These cells were being destroyed by radiation exposure. His chromosomes were likewise damaged until they could no longer reproduce. The first sign of chromosome destruction appeared in his blood. His white blood cell numbers were dropping drastically. Now, something as little as
Sounds
a
good.
common cold could spell disaster. He was quickly moved to a sterilized room, where he would lie alone for weeks to make sure that didn't happen. And Dr. Maikawa and his team began searching for a possible cell donor that could give Owuchi's body the ability to produce its own white blood cells once more. Almost miraculously, one of Owuchi's siblings was that donor. Dr. Maikawa and his team collected her blood, then extracted their blood stem cells over the course of 9 hours for 2 days straight. Her cells were then transplanted into Owuchi, with hopes that his body would accept them and produce white blood cells once again to improve his immune response.
I don't think it's
It
gonna
took
work.
10 days to discover if the procedure worked. In that time, he was able to speak to his loved ones and familiarize himself with the nurses tending to him. One nurse asked him how he met his wife. He told me that they had known each other since high school and they had married after about 7 years. Later, she remarked that she was impressed by his story and told him, "You married with a passionate love." The radiation started to show itself on the surface of Owuchi's body. Another nurse, describing how they adhered to gauze, IVs, and other medical equipment, remarked that it became more and more frequent that his skin was ripped off along with the removed tape. Eventually, we couldn't use surgical tape anymore.
What the
There
fuck?
is a photograph that nearly all sources for this story use claiming to be Owuchi in the hospital. This is not Owuchi. It's nearly impossible to find the original image, but it is not Owuchi. The man in this photo
Okay, you
has
don't gotta
had his
yell at
right
me for
foot
it.
amputated, and Owuchi did not. At the same time, Dr. Maikawa was trying to convey just how dire Owuchi's situation was to his grieving family. He said his appearance was changing drastically, so I had his family see his condition in order for them to accept the truth. Owuchi's lungs began retaining fluids, making his breathing difficult to the point that
Oof.
medical staff considered putting him on a ventilator. This would mean he wouldn't be able to speak to his family. At the time, staff noted Owuchi's words, things like, "I can't stand it," and "I wanna
Chad, that's
go
all because of his job. Jobs don't care about you, I promise. All they care about is you getting them that money. If his job kept doing that safety bullshit, that would have never happened. But oh no, let's result in a more efficient way so we can do it faster and fuck up our employees. This is what happened.
home." He even cried out for his mother. One nurse said later that seeing that kind of scene made our hearts ache. It was true that nobody knew for sure what would happen to him, but we were able to imagine that his condition would get worse and worse. Soon after, Dr. Maikawa was forced to put Ouchi on a ventilator. He wasn't breathing, so they inserted a tube into his windpipe. But despite this, Ouchi's family still visited him every day. A common practice in Japanese culture, senbazuru, the act of folding 1,000 origami cranes, is thought to provide good health to the seriously ill. Since Ouchi's white blood cell count was so low, they couldn't bring any of the cranes into his room, but they folded them all the same. 10 days had passed since Ouchi's blood transfusion, and his blood was tested to see if his siblings' white blood cells had successfully implanted in his body. Peering into a microscope, Dr. Maikawa spotted 2 red dots in one of his blood cells. The chromosomes had survived. It was the first time that
good.
white blood cells producers had been successfully
That's a
implanted
good thing,
into a
right?
victim of radiation. His white blood cell count was increasing back to normal levels. He was still intubated, so he couldn't speak, but he was able to respond to his family's calls with gestures. A week later, however, small mutations were discovered in his blood. The chromosomes that Dr. Maikawa had implanted in Ouchi were damaged.
War Thunder, the
Now
military
that's bad
online
news.
action game, has received this year's first major update.
Doctors believe that the radiation in his body was so intense, some cells mutated harshly, causing his own cells to emit radiation on their own. Ouchi's worsening condition was not limited to just his skin and blood. The cells walling his intestines began to die as well, and without the ability to replace them, it would only be a matter of time until the bacteria in his guts made their way into his bloodstream,
Oh, fuck.
threatening sepsis. In the weeks
That's
following this
fucked.
development, the amount of diarrhea Ouchi produced increased every day, up to 3 liters per day,
Why did I
His
get that this
intestines
water?
began
Ah!
filling his stool with blood. In fact,
That was
he was
nasty.
losing so much blood that there were days where he received more than 10 blood transfusions in half a day.
What the
Ouchi was
fuck?
moved to a bed that could tilt, made for critically ill patients to aid his circulation. His body was covered almost entirely with gauze, and his eyes began bleeding. Another nurse described his condition at the time, saying that,
Bro, honestly, like, I'm not trying to be fucked up, but I think if they let him pass away, that would have been better. Because at this point, he's just getting tortured and tortured on the inside and outside of his body. That's fucking sad, chat. That's so. Oh my god.
there was a lot of exudate in his skin. It took almost half a day to treat it. Exudate meaning body weeping, aka his body was seeping moisture. Ouchi was also given a ton of narcotics to help him manage his pain. But despite that, he still looked like he was suffering terribly.
That's
At
what I'm
this point,
saying, bro. He's
Ouchi
just
was
suffering
losing
and suffering. And they don't even know a way to help him yet. So it's like. I honestly don't know. If I was a family member of his, I wouldn't want him to just be like, girl. I would want him to try everything. But on the inside, he's fucking like suffering so badly.
around 10 liters of water a day, just through his skin and intestines. So it became imperative that they replenish the same amount of water each day. With the level of devastation, the only option left was a skin transplant. Medical staff cultivated skin cells in vitro, then grafted it to his body. However, Dr. Maikawa noted that the cultured skin didn't adhere to his body because of his deteriorating condition. While it was obvious that Ouchi's chances were slim, according to another member of the team, if somebody had said that aloud, if somebody had had doubts about the active intervention in his life, and the doubts had spread across the team, we would have lost sight of our purpose. What the hell are we doing? For whom? For what? I guess we were afraid of having that kind of thought. Another nurse added, I couldn't endure doing the treatment if I hadn't had the conviction. I was doing it to protect his life. Almost 2 months had passed since the incident, and after the massive blood loss and amount of transfusions, his heart was beating at a blistering 120 beats per
120.
minute constantly, about twice as fast as a resting heart rate. It was as if he was running a marathon all day, every day.
What the
One
fuck?
morning, Dr. Maikawa was doing his rounds when he saw it. A monitor displaying Ouchi's condition showed that his heart had stopped. Dr. Maikawa bolted to Ouchi's room to start CPR. By the end of the day, Ouchi's heart had stopped and started 3 times.
What the
He
fuck?
was still alive, but the effects of his multiple heart
Oh
failures
my
were
God,
taking their
bro.
toll on the rest of
This
his
is
body.
crazy.
He was no
He literally died and came back to life 3 times.
longer conscious enough to respond. Dr. Maikawa said, "Some of the staff members, including me, had a feeling that we shouldn't continue the treatment anymore.
You shouldn't have, bro. At
However,
this point,
Mr.
you're
Ouchi's
torturing him.
family didn't give up hope for his recovery
Oh, it's a
until the very
family.
end. Beside his medical bed, his mother called out for him, 'Hisashi, hold on,' while his father leaned in close to give him some words of encouragement. Never give up.
It's so sad.
But things were only going to get worse. His immune cells malfunctioned and began attacking his own body. He needed to undergo even more blood transfusions to keep his body from tearing itself apart. Dr. Maikawa admitted that there were no workable solutions. My honest feeling was that we were in a complete deadlock. On the 81st day after the accident at Tokaimura, well into December, Dr. Maikawa called Ouchi's family together and recommended that if his heart stopped beating again, they should not attempt to resuscitate him. They agreed, so Dr. Maikawa gave his medical team the do not resuscitate order. The following day, Ouchi's wife had a chance to speak with him. She dropped off another batch of paper cranes, which now outnumbered just short of 10,000, and said she wanted to
Wow.
ring in the new year with him. 2 days later, Ouchi's wife returned along with their son. This was the first time in a long time they'd been able to see Ouchi without bandages covering his face. His son, who was in elementary school, said, with hope in his heart, "Dad, hang in there." A nurse who was in the room said that this was the first time she'd seen his wife cry. As far as I could see, that was the only time she cried. Apparently, she was trying to suppress a cry. I thought she didn't have to do that. Later that evening, on the 21st of December, 1999, Ouchi passed away.
Yeah, what's
Dr.
gonna
Maikawa,
happen?
upon reaching retirement age in the spring of 2000, retired from his work in hospitals. This case made me painfully aware that the system made by human beings could cause terrible disasters with one wrong move. There is nothing
Chris.
mere doctors like us can do about that.
Nope.
With any latest technology and equipment, we have no chance against the catastrophic effects of radiation.
Bro, radiation
learned-
is one of the scariest things in the world. Like, let's be honest, it can get you so much fucking diseases. Cancer, tumors, all the scary diseases you can get from radiation. And these motherfuckers out here building nuclear weapons, bro. Like, come on, if a nuclear war happens, radiation will be all over the world. That's what's gonna kill us. Like, chill out with
That
that.
the hard way. Moving forward, Dr. Maikawa worked on establishing medical procedures for the treatment of radiation exposure. People who passed away will never come back again. There will be no next time for them. The Tokaimura nuclear accident was the most severe nuclear accident in Japanese history, until 2011's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear meltdown. Nowadays, in the aftermath of Chernobyl and Fukushima, which both left entire cities unfit for human life, nuclear power has a serious PR problem. The world of the future is no longer a purely nuclear one, as
No.
envisioned by our Cold War forebears. But does this potentially dangerous technology still have a place in our future?
Yeah.
Likely, yes. For
It
one,
sucks.
nuclear power accounts for at least 10% of the entire world's power generation, and is also the second largest source of low carbon power generation, second only to hydroelectric power generation. Japan relies on imports for approximately 80% of its energy consumption, and 90% of their crude oil imports come from the Middle East. So diversification of
No,
their
but
energy
that's
generation was paramount. After the oil crisis of 1973 and 1979, Japan's energy sources included liquefied natural gas and coal, alongside nuclear generation. After 2011's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster, the share of Japan's energy generation made up by nuclear power has dramatically decreased from a high of 30% in 2009 to a low of 0% in 2014.
That's good. That's
In
good. We don't
2020,
need that.
It increased to 5% of Japan's total energy production. It's also good to mention that nuclear power is pretty old technology by 2020 standards. and we've been developing safety procedures since the 1940s. Though safety systems only work if we use them.
Facts.
There will have to be some hard conversations in the future considering the benefits and risks of new.
Oh, this is crazy, chat. I honestly blame his work for that. I mean, everyone should blame the job because their job literally took out so much safety hazards, which caused him to go and get killed like that. He literally lived in basically a dead body for 83 days, just getting tortured every single day. That's so sad. But if you enjoyed this video and this live stream, please like, subscribe. I'm literally live every single day. Peace out. I don't know, I always say peace out before oh, actually, I want to try something. Bro, if I make this bigger, right? Okay, I need it bigger than that. What the fuck? It's not... Okay, there we go. If I make this bigger, right, chat? Can I take a screenshot? I wanna... Oh, I'm sorry, recording. Hey, peace out, YouTube. I'm trying to talk to my chat, not YouTube, just joking. But hey, peace out. Make sure you subscribe, hit that like notification. Yes, sir.